Okay, I just got a couple of messages from Stefan and from Z. Z's trying to get into the meet space here,
Mm-hmm.
so he'll be here maybe momentarily if he can get in. And then
Yeah.
Stefan has a headache. He has like a migraine, so he can't join us today. So, but that's okay. Yeah, well, I wanted to get their feedback, but if it's I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right.
That's
So,
okay. So Ankit is joining, and Jesse. Well, I
Hello.
told you a little bit about Ankit. Yeah. So he's going to present today on his project his project proposal. So he did a project proposal um, for GSOC, and it was very good, but it wasn't like we only could pick one person, and so it was a very tough decision. But he wanted to join us after he did a summer internship earlier in the summer, and then he wanted to join us with his work. He wanted to he wants to continue kind of working on getting this work funded and maybe developed a little bit more, and he's gonna join our group, and our group meetings and so forth. So welcome to Ankit, and so he's going to present his work.
yeah. So, another person, ZZ, somebody was about to join, I think. Another person.
Oh, I guess he can't make it. He's got a issue with his internet connection. So why don't we go ahead and present? So
Yeah.
Jesse, anything you wanted to say before Ankit starts?
Oh, no, I mean, I'll say some things after, but I don't have just a few comments and things about the other meeting and the other paper, but it doesn't have to happen now, so we can present that now.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Ankit.
Yeah.
Let me get ready here.
I'll start with the thing.
Yeah, go ahead. You can share.
Yeah. Is the presentation visible?
I don't think so. No.
I can see it.
Oh, okay. There we go.
It's on.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the project that we had for Google Summer of Code. So my idea, as you know, what the idea for the implementation is. So divided the task into the three phases. Firstly, as Bradley told us to set up the environment properly. So I have the environment ready, very basic prototype ready in Turtle, which is Python's library, which is very basic Python GUI that is available. But I tried to just test the thing or make the prototype ready for very basic simulation, so that at least the idea is clear to everyone what I'm trying to do. So I tried to set up the environment. Thereafter, in the environment, I have something like this. And let me share the. Let me just continue with this then. So I have a turtle environment in which this is the prototype of the setup, in which I have a black dot as stimulus, and this this thing is my vehicle, in which this red dot is pointing to the motor, and these two purple dots are pointing as these purple dots are like sensors, the couple of sensors that the vehicle has. So I wrote a code of myself, uh, just making my own rules that this stimulus is this stimulus is what should I say? This stimulus enhances, not exactly enhances, uh, disturbs this vehicle in its behavior. So the wiring of this vehicle is in such a way that it follows this path, because there's a mathematical thing behind this. So as you know, what the thing is behind this thing. So when I run the simulation, I'll show you the simulation on my desktop after some time, so you'll get to know. But before that, I just want to make my idea clear to everyone. So as you can see, this is the trajectory that the vehicle follows in my prototype. In my prototype, there's only one vehicle and there's only one stimulus. So it follows this kind of trajectory, which is falls in line with the covert nature, as you can see. And in the same way, I've coded the aggressive nature and the lover and explorer nature of the vehicle. So I'll show you the simulation later on. But before that, let me just walk through my strategy. How did I plan to do the things? So setup of the environment is clear. If anyone has any doubt with the thing, I can clear. I think Bradley knows it better, knows it well.
For what?
Like the prototype and the setup of the environment is clear. Like
Yeah,
what I wanted to do.
I think
Yeah.
well, there is some work in the repo, like if you run it.
Exactly.
I thought it was when you showed it to me during the application period. I thought it was pretty good, pretty
Yeah,
straightforward. So yeah,
exactly.
I can make a comment here. So yeah, that's something that Jesse and Stefan are working on in terms of like having a stimulus and having the vehicles like orient towards a stimulus. So they might have more to say about like more thoughts about that, maybe how to improve it, or I mean right now I think it's clear, but there might be better ways more things to take into account.
Yeah. So that will come in my next slide, which is the improvement that I can do into this. So my first thought was to look for better alternative of Turtle, because if I run many things in Turtle, the thing is not very smooth, and it like sometimes if the speed is too high, it becomes like some kind of zigzag, or just the vehicle escapes out of the environment in no time. So if there was a better library, so I went through some libraries. So I came across TK Intel, and I don't think so that works. And there's another library one of my friends is working on is Pygame. So have anyone works with Pygame or has any idea about Pygame? So Pygame is the name of the library where I can create objects and do things what the way I want to do.
I've not heard of that
Okay.
specific language.
And yeah. So just to stick, the idea is to stick with Python, because if I move into some other language, there will be problem, because in the next step I'm just going to implement deep learning, and Python has some good deep learning libraries. So this was the first thing that I wanted to improve upon in my prototype. So the next thing was uh, to just like in this prototype, the stimulus was it present at the pre-coded locations. Like, so I wanted to randomize the value of where stimulus appears and where the vehicle appears, and thereafter obviously I would want more vehicles and stimulus in the single window, and also decide the initial orientation of the vehicle concerning the stimuli. So there is and also there's one more thing that I can do is like provide initial velocity or acceleration to the vehicle. So that will again complicate the situation further. So, and next thing is to work on the simulation of that's the thing that I said. And another important thing that I would like to improve upon is like in my prototype, what I have done is uh, I have assumed some mathematical model of myself that the vehicle is influencing the stimulus is influencing the vehicle by like inversely proportional to distance or some rules like that. I have mentioned it in my GitHub repository. So I saw this paper where they have some mathematical model for vehicle 2 and 3, and I was curious if there exists some more models for other vehicles too, so that I can like use some concrete model of the vehicle so that it just looks good or makes the thing even complicated.
We,
And the next thing is,
I was gonna
yeah.
interject. We actually have been doing some reading in the group, so, but I don't think you've gotten. Maybe you don't have access to the papers, but maybe I'll re-up some of those readings on some of the models that we've been talking about. So.
So I just saw this paper, I think, during my proposal period. I saw some literature is there for vehicle 2 and 3. So I'll just show you. Actually, you can look into that later. So it would be good if we find something like this. So or then I should ask then what is the model that you guys are working upon as the like sensory stimulation to define or find the sensory stimulation of the vehicle due to stimulus?
Well, there are a number of different approaches. I think Jesse says he's curious to look at the paper in 1.12. So I think I have you sent me a link to these slides. I'll put them in the Slack channel so people
Exactly.
Well, I think Jesse, or I think Stefan and Z both have different ways that they're dealing with the stimulus. So, I mean, that's where I wanted to kind of get some feedback on that. I don't like specifically, there are different ways you can deal with the stimulus. We'd have to talk a little bit more about it in terms of specifics. Like obviously, you'd have to maybe test it out or like think about it a little bit more. There are different ways that I think I mentioned to Stefan, for example, that one way to deal with it is maybe to treat it as some sort of like gradient or some sort of like resource, like a scent, an odor. Another way to do it though is to treat it as like a beacon, like for spatial, like a spatial wayfinding point. So like the stimulus could simply be like they use in the book, they use light. So like the book by Braitenberg, he uses a light source, and so they're phototactic, which means they move towards the light source. But you can use other methods for if you can set up something where you're looking at different types of stimulus that might be. So like a spatial wayfinding point is basically where the organism might go towards a point, identify it as like a certain point in space, and then you might have like multiple points where they represent some like pattern of some like set of maybe like if you walk around a city, you have landmarks like buildings or rivers or something, that they would treat them something like that. So that might work too.
So if I think we have the YouTube, this video is recorded and put up on YouTube, so they might see this later, and at least the audio is clear, so they would know what exactly I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I'll move on after that. So the second thing, the thing that you talked about in mail was I was just looking for some library in which I can show more details about the vehicle. Like if there are lots of vehicles, then either we can store the data, as you said, store the data and analyze it, and we can just add some more features to zoom in what is the sensory activation due to different labels that we might decide later. So this was the another feature that is still, we are still in the setting up the environment phase. So and obviously I would want to implement as many vehicles as possible. So for the time being, I have gone up to vehicle 3, which is first, second, and third vehicle. So this is it in my prototype, and tiny details to the simulation. Yeah, that's the thing that I already talked about maybe. So this brings me to the next phase, which is very important. So after I'm done with the basic setup of the environment and different things to improve upon the features of the environment, I would go to the main phase, which is like training the vehicle from the stimulus. So what happens is I have proposed to put up, as I said, there will be multiple stimulus, and the stimulus can be image, sound, text, or any other thing that we can imagine. Like I've seen some other proposal by maybe Jesse or somebody. There I saw order as a stimulus. So we might work on that too. But like my approach is mainly on the deep learning thing. So I thought it would be better to like have abstract things as images or sounds or text, or just show different colored light sources. So and the idea was to give a meaning to these stimulus that I'm talking about, which is image, sound, or differently colored light sources. And the idea was to give a common, just decide a particular or rather group of labels. Suppose we have 5 labels, or rather 14 labels, 14 vehicles. So one label is actually if the stimulus is labeled as provoking vehicle 1 behavior, so that would strengthen the networks for behaving as vehicle 1. So that would come as the third part of the thing. But here the idea is to basically label the stimuli or different type of stimuli in a common group of labels. So we should decide before that what is the labels that we can work upon, or rather if say fear, if we define fear as a label, then that should provoke coordinates, or we can simply define the labels as the labels that provoke behavior for vehicle 1A or 1B or things like that. So that way, if we talk about, we'll have a lot of labels. So that would even complicate the situation. But that is later to think upon. What should we do later? So I hope this is clear. This will be like this will be implemented by just image. For images, we'll have image classifiers. For sound, we will have sound classifier. As I saw in one paper, in one article, that we can just like we can categorize the images of the different things. So if depending upon the data that we have, we can just like broaden our category of even audio signals or images or anything else that is available for training. And as we know, text can be also used as like, we want to make the system smart enough, so we just want to put as many as stimulus as possible. So adding text and thereafter saying that this chunk of text, the vehicle senses, and then adds meaning to it. Thereafter, it acts accordingly, or this stimulus, this text stimulus, in this text stimulus changes the behavior of the vehicle in some way or another. So if we see it this way, so we might, I think I wrote this thing in my GSOC proposal, that we are assuming that the vehicle is having multiple kind of sensors: sensor for images, sensor for audio, sensor for text, or any other light source. So in that way we can say, and all the effects of every stimulus will be cumulatively uh, added to their behavior, and the resultant behavior will be obviously very complex one, and that's how the vehicle will move. And yeah, so the labeling criteria, as I talked about, we can group two kind of stimulus as a single label. So the picture and a bark of a dog, or a gunshot, or a bark of a dog can be labeled as fear, or provoking cowardness as behavior in the vehicle. So this is it. And any confusion about it, if it is there?
No, actually, it's yeah, I like this idea. This specific point here about a picture and a bark of a dog as an image and sound stimuli, respectively. So yeah, that's something that Z's kind of working on with multi-sensory integration.
Yeah.
He's coming at it from a little bit different angle, but I like the idea of using like stimuli basically for a deep learning training set. You
Yeah.
know, so like you're bringing in, I guess you would have like text cues in the environment or image cues that
Yeah.
you would. Yeah, I mean that would be that's an interesting approach.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I guess it would be a little bit different than the conventional way that people do vehicles, but I think it would work if
Yeah.
it works out.
Yeah, actually, this plan was very clear when I was just working on the thing. So when I set up the environment, then I felt like the only problem that can happen is like the availability of database for training. Like, so, and there's another, like, I was very much uh, I felt happy that this kind of data is actually available even for audio signals. So as you can see, these things are already being done. So and the data must be growing. So we might attempt to just, if not many sound sources, if we can just to show that we can include audio signals, we can just use some of the audio signals as to make our labels. So this was the thing that I already talked about. So yeah, so similarly to different light sources will provoke some different kind of behavior in the surrounding vehicles. And since there are a lot of vehicles, uh, the proximity issues. I think I talked about this in one of my mails during proposal, that the proximity can be solved. Proximity issues can be solved by the Boyd's idea, that the flocking of birds, how it works. So that would add another complex behavior to the vehicle environment, and the environment that we have. So yeah. So, and I would use deep learning and many uh, classifier algorithm that we already have. So I actually have to look what the data is available with us, and how far we can go. And before that, obviously, we have to just decide on the labels that we have to work upon. So I hope that is clear.
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah. So once the training is done, now we are like that. The decision making system will be very simple. Like it will have simple if else statement that would strengthen the wiring, internal neural wiring of the vehicle, saying that taking the simple case in the prototype that we have now. Suppose we have 3 vehicles and we have 6 labels. 6 labels. So depending upon the label, that would strengthen a particular behavior. So in the code that I have, it's very simple. It's a simple if else statement. So the wiring rule is that a particular label inspire a particular wiring permutation between the sensors and effectors. So this is clear. And in case of multiple vehicles, we'll have superposition effect due to each stimulus, and also to deal with the proximity issues, we'll use Boyd's approach, or if anything better that we can have. So I'll show what's the prototype that I made. So in my prototype, I use shape and color of the stimulus as a label, to shape and color to decide label of the my vehicles, label for the vehicles, and that's how the label for the stimulus, and that's how the vehicles understand that how should I act with respect to that stimulus. So again, in this thing, I have only one vehicle and only one stimulus. So what I did was, I just defined four different kind of stimulus, which is triangle black and square yellow and square green and triangle blue, and defined that this kind of stimulus with these two parameters would strengthen coordinates as a response. So in the same way, if we have different or more number of stimulus, suppose this, instead of this black triangle, if we had some image, and that image was that of a dog, and we presume that dog, we just decide of our assumption that dog provokes coordinates in the vehicle. So if if we have the labels ready, that will be ready in the second phase. We can do whatever we want. So that will be a simple if else statement, and based upon that, we'll have strengthening of the internal wiring of the thing. So I'll show you the code in a while, so that will clear how is that happening. And as we know that in case of artificial neural network, the result is not binary, not zero or one. So there's another thing that we can discuss upon, is to, like, if the labels, like if suppose coordinates as a label, uh, if the result of that label is 50% coordinates, or rather 70% coordinates provoking, and 40% explorer provoking, so that thing will actually distribute in the wiring. So the vehicle nearby would be like influenced to behave as 60% coord and 40% explorer. So that would again, maybe it will complicate the situation further. So depending upon what we need, and we can do a lot of things, but it really depends upon what we really need, and what is the behavior that we are expecting in a complex system. So because if you make things too much complicated, the things will go haywire, and you would not know what is the logic behind that. So to do these things from basic, I've just created the prototype, and this is all I have. And talking about the improvements that I can do in the third phase, obviously I'd like to have more vehicles and stimulus in the single window, and again proximity issues between the two vehicles. So, and this is the flow chart. It basically talks about the same thing that I talked about. So you can look at that later in the Slack. Uh, yeah. So what are the tools used? Or before that, if anyone has any comment on this, I'll keep the flowchart open.
I mean, it looks fine. Yeah, we can go through it like people
Yeah.
can go through it as they want. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
What was it? Oh, the thing about the where you had percentages of different types of behaviors. Like you said, there was an example where you had 70% cowardice and maybe 30% explorer, and then you would distribute that in the wiring of the network. So
Yeah,
I think that's there's a, there might be a way to represent that.
Yeah.
That takes. Well, we'll talk about that later. I don't want to get too much into it right now. So,
exactly.
but we'll flag
So
that for
because
future discussion.
yeah, exactly. So that was the thing because out of the networks, the neural networks, the output is not. If we want, we can put it in binary, but it's not always good to put things in binary because there's a more probability of errors to come upon in that case. So the third thing is our like the idea is must be clear by now. So the thing is to what are the tools that are used for this for implementing my idea. So just I need a good graphic user interface for the environment and the deep learning algorithm that I want to have, and that is confirmed that we have like very simple classifiers for image and even we have sound classifiers. So that's another good thing. And the mathematical models, as I talked about, for determining sensory activation in the vehicles. So, and I like the book. That's why I stuck to this project, and I'm still really interested to do this thing because it took really a lot of effort during last semester to like replicate the thing from basics to this level, and would love to just complete the project on whatever can happen later. It's another thing. So the long term goals is to implement all the 14 type of vehicles, and this, as you said, that we can make a software out of it and see if anyone is looking forward to it, or we can just put it somewhere. So that's all for the presentation. I'd show you the thing, the real simulation that I have on my desktop on Visual Studio Code. So let me check if I can change the presentation to Visual Studio Code. Yeah. So let me know if you want to say anything.
Oh yeah, we'd like to see it.
Yeah. The
Okay.
window that, yeah. So this is the thing. So this is vehicle 2. So this is the, yeah. So this is the prototype for phase 1. So this would actually show you the environment that comes up after.
I've seen
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's a black
Yeah.
screen. The share.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just running the code for vehicle 2A. I think it's visible. Vehicle 2A.
No, I don't see anything. It's
Yeah. So I think the screen will be fine if it is. Yeah. So
right. Okay, I see.
yeah. So this is my vehicle, and is the cursor visible to everyone?
I can't see it. It's. Why don't you try sharing the screen again?
Yeah, I just see black screen.
I just set the Visual Studio thing to add option on thing, and then let me check again.
Okay.
I think I could see a mouse cursor, but not anything beyond that.
I see. So if I share my entire screen, would that make things
I
better?
think that'd probably be better. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, your entire screen. But I can't see an option to share it. Why is it so? Present now. A window cancel. Your entire screen. Can't see the share button. Like that is not enabled or something like that.
Huh.
Yeah. I'm just going to the present now, then your entire screen, and I can't see the share button like working. And if I go to one window, there's some. I think it's visible now. Let me check again. Yeah. Okay, fine. So is it visible now? The
Oh
window?
yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think now just going to execute the vehicle two that I have. So let me know if you can see that.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Okay, there it
Yeah.
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 is.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. You see. Yeah. So this is my stimulus, and this is the vehicle, and this is actually the trajectory that is being seen. So the problem with that is if I like vary the sensory activation or the parameters, so it will just like go. You can see some kind of zigzag thing. So actually, the frame rate is not good in this turtle thing. So if the speed is too big, it will go like this and this and this. So so that actually, if we want to increase the number of vehicles or if we want to complicate the situation, I don't think so. This environment will sustain itself. And talking about storing the parameters, or we can, if we want to know about the parameters instantly, there's not much option available here. So we just need to switch to some other GUI that is available. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
So yeah. So this thing is very clear that as the vehicle goes further from the stimulus, the speed is very less. So I would I'd go for another vehicle, which is vehicle 3A, which shows some kind of love or things like that. So yeah, as you can see, when it was away, the speed was good, but like higher, and as it approaches, the speed like dies away, and it becomes slower and slower, and it will just stay in the like it will be the stable equilibrium, because in this case, parallelly wired and love condition, what happens is the vehicle is in stable equilibrium with respect to the stimulus, and even if we have more stimulus around, it will stick to it, because uh, it is in the stable equilibrium, because if it goes somewhere here, it will come back, because the activation due to that is more than some stimulus over here. And in the other case, which is explorer, it will be in the unstable equilibrium, so that would provoke, or the wiring is such a way that it follows the explorer behavior, and in that behavior, if the condition is in unstable equilibrium, so if the vehicle just like deviates uh, from this stimulus, and there's another stimulus over here, so that will just get attracted to another, and depending upon the number of stimulus, it will just keep moving from one place to another. So that's the environment thing, which is like in this condition, I have the starting of the vehicle as fixed here, uh, and the position of the stimulus is also fixed, but we can obviously randomize the thing and increase the number of stimulus and vehicles. So I'll go and run the code for the decision maker thing that I talked about. So let me go to another window, and here I have decision maker, which where you'll see something like, yeah. So here I have in the code you can see this stimulus is defined as square and green. So I think it square and greens is uh, is ruled as love provoking stimulus. So as you can see, this is just going for this stimulus and just stopping by nearby. So
Okay.
and yeah,
Yeah, it looks pretty good. So you have
yeah,
different types of stimulus and they follow different dynamics. And then that's
yeah,
just
exactly.
one stimulus of that type. So if you had them distributed across the environment, you get different results.
Yeah.
Uh,
So if you see the code of this decision maker, that would make things even clear, because I have coded it like this. So square green is provokes lower attraction, and here in in the function, I have passed square and green as the parameters. So if I change the behavior will change accordingly. And one more thing is like the thing that I talked about, that this let us look at this gen stimulus function, which is depending upon the parameters that we send, that would actually strengthen the weights of the wiring. So actually W3, W1 and these things are weights and they are predefined, and I think I have done documentation for the same. I hope I have done. Should be. So I think it looks fine to everyone and makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this W3 and W4 are the weights of those of those wiring to decide the behavior of vehicle. So these actually wires for and parallel and cross connections. So these are the weights for those networks. So I think it would make more clear. It would make it more clear if I had like made some kind of note about just just labeling those networks. As you can see in the vehicle, we have pretty good pictures of the vehicle saying that, like depicting the wiring by lines. So I could label that wiring by W1 and that wiring by W2. So I would when I was planning, I had approached this thing in this way, so I can surely show the plans that I had. So I think that's all that I have. And now on the screen, it is actually on the console. It is showing the coordinates of the vehicles and vehicle and acceleration and things like that. So yeah, so that's it.
Okay. That looks good. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So Jesse, do you have any comments?
Oh, I think it's very interesting. I'm glad to see it. I really like the ideas about looking to get towards more complex behaviors. I'm curious about. I like the idea of using percentages versus non-binary to kind of have a little bit more flexibility and realism in the behaviors, and potentially, as a vehicle's moving through an environment, and being able to see the shift of, okay, maybe this is 20%, now 50, now 75% calories or whatever, and seeing that as a kind of change, I think would be very interesting. So, no, it's very cool.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So thank you, Ankit, for your presentation, and I'll pass along the recording to Z and Stefan, and then maybe we'll talk about next week and see if we get some feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Jesse, you said you had some comments you wanted to make, or what was the thing you wanted to do?
Oh, just like outside of this presentation.
Yeah, outside of this presentation.
We're saying something at the start.
Yeah, not a whole lot. I've been looking more into the every good regulator stuff, and I found a primer on the original theorem that's been kind of interesting for me, and I'm going through that. One of the questions that I had in the paper is, but in the paper, as in the short paper that we're working on, is there one thing I wasn't sure between you and Rob, is there a particular desired outcome in terms of what it should let me back up and say, I see a lot of opportunities to tie every good regulator theorem to different downstream or modern manifestations of cybernetic stuff, and I don't know how much you guys talked about that in terms of what you like. There's a desired set of outcomes you want it to be connected to, or just sort of wherever it seems relevant in the most sort of, I don't know, broad categories, and having that there. I don't know if that really makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think we've thought about it like we've been thinking about it in a limited sense because, we've been just kind of having, when you have discussions about something, they kind of narrow down to like a certain set of things that the people in the room are thinking about. So, I mean, I think if you had like some, some examples that you could bring to bear, I think that would be great. I don't know how well they'll fit into the paper in the end, but that doesn't mean that we can't put them, use them for something else. Or I think probably though that we do need to make it more concrete in general. So I think I made that point in the meeting that it's very even if it's like oriented towards philosophy or theory, it's very sort of loose in terms of how it applies to things, and that's not necessarily good because people don't understand. I think it makes it easier to understand, how something. Well, you mentioned in the meeting about how cybernetics needs like sort of a PR makeover. Because people think about it as not a serious pursuit or it doesn't apply to my work. I mean, I think this would actually help in that goal. And, there may be other opportunities like creating videos or creating other media for like communicating that. It doesn't have to be limited to a paper.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think that would be good just to bring that. I think, if you wanted to pursue that, that would be good. And, really at this point it would be like, assembling the examples, making the argument, kind of like saying these are sort of things that the EGRT can be tied to, and this is why, and just making a rigorous argument for that. And then we can move on to like, how do we make this more formal, or how do we fit this into the paper, or if we want to do other things with it, that's fine too. But I think at its core, I think it's a pretty good idea to really kind of tie it to things.
Okay, because that helps, because I know we talked, like, I definitely think, like, at least the most basic version of like an idea flow chart or something like that would be good. But there's more that there's a lot of things you could do in terms of making it. I'm remembering now I said something kind of grandiose about like an interactive web thing. Like, that's cool, but that makes sense in terms of that answered my question basically.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
that's good.
If you saw the email from this week for the group email I sent, in the top I put a diagram of I think it was cognitive science. And there's one for cybernetics too, which is why I bring it up. There's like a map of cybernetics, in this case cognitive science. So like it's a timeline basically, and then it has all these different developments in it. So like milestones, like in the 50s people were talking about X, Y, and Z, and then that influenced what happened in the 60s and then the 70s. So people have done this, but I don't know if they've done it like they've done it in a timeline. I don't know if they've done it sort of like by topical area. Like if you took the EGRT and thought about different aspects of it, what are the things that emerged from those ideas, like concrete things that emerged. I mean, that might be another way to do a visualization.
Yeah, no, that's interesting and a good point.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I had one other different comment, but I'm trying to find. I made a note about it somewhere.
Okay.
I think in one of the emails that you sent me, it was about my one of my original ideas or whatnot, and I'm trying to find specifically where it was, but you basically mentioned neuroethology, I think.
Oh yeah, neuroethology.
Yeah, and I guess what I'll just say is like, yeah, I didn't know that was what it was called, but I'm very interested in that specifically. So I think I might try to look at some papers along the line in a computational sense that may kind of lend to what my original aspirations might have been for my original project idea.
Yeah, I can. I think there are a couple papers too that I can send you on that topical area. They, it's kind of like a very niche area, but I mean that's what, like if you're thinking about like animal behavior, even like human behavior, but then people look at like the neural correlates of that. So, like
Yeah.
yeah, like and they do a lot of work in insects and maybe other model organisms, but you get this connection between like the sort of naturalistic behavior and then what's going on in the brain. So, and then there are people study that they kind of use robots as models as well. So, there are people looking at, say, for example, movement behavior in insects, and then people have flipped that on its head and said, well, let's build a robot that does this sort of thing. Like we'll build a model based on the robots, what's going on in the brain, and then we'll produce a robot that does these behaviors. So it's an interesting area. I'll have to send you some things on it. So
Yeah. Anything that you think would be interesting, feel free to send my way.
okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I haven't really updated my Trello board since, but I think I will do that. Also, you mentioned that you might be able to do the next meeting with Rob at a later date, like later time in the day. That might be useful for me, but I'm flexible too.
Yeah, well, we used to meet in the evening. Like he works during the school year, during the day, so we usually we would meet in the evenings, like at 8 or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I can, but with the time that we proposed, would that still work for you, or
3 o'clock?
yeah, or the 2
Yeah,
o'clock?
that could work.
Yeah,
2 o'clock would be even better for me, honestly. But
yeah,
they both work.
okay. But
but
for future
actually, in
reference,
my case, this time is most perfect because 3 o'clock in US will be
oh yeah,
night. Yeah, so
we're talking.
it will.
Yeah, we were talking about a different meeting though. So, I mean, I know. Yeah, I meet a lot of times with people in like Asia and India and East Asia, and this is like a good time for that time zone, those time zones. But we're talking about like meeting with people in the U.S., so it's a different meeting. But I do pay attention to that for people in different time zones, and so I'm an hour behind Jesse. So it's not, and I'm an hour behind Rob too. So it's a little bit easier to. What was that?
Exactly. If this is the timeline, then it would be like better for Stefan also because it would be like some kind of some evening or afternoon time in Germany, and here in India it's evening, so it's good for me. But not any further
Yeah,
than
yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah. It's like really, it's fairly early in the morning for me here. So
Yeah.
this is when I usually have my meetings with people, like in any time zone where I have to make several hours. They're several hours ahead of me, so that's
Is
yeah.
is he in China or is he not?
I think he's in China right now. He might be because he goes to school. I think in Pittsburgh. So it's he's, but I think he's in China right now. So
Okay.
He said he's in China for his internship or something like that, and summers are still on in China, so he must be there in China itself.
yeah.
And there's a 2.5 hour gap from China and India. So
Yeah.
so it would be even more bad for him because in China presently it's about 10 or something like that. So if we make it further, then it's a problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't move this meeting time. It's just so it's so it's just a lesson in like how to collaborate with people. You got to find the right time and convert the hours and everything. I've gotten it kind of figured out how to do it though. So before we go, why don't we? I don't know if we have anything on the board. Either Jesse or Ankit. I'm not sure if you guys have too much on the board. But I wanted to show Ankit the board. So let's see. Let's go through it a little bit here, just a little bit. So let me get a link to the repo, and I'll put it in the chat. So this is our GitHub repo that we use for. We have a like a Kanban board that we use for tasks. So things that we bring up and
went through that sometime.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you go to that link and you go to projects, actually I can share my screen here.
It shows ongoing, done, and like not done things.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like if you want to like stay on top of what your things are you want to work on, and it's good for like metering things. Like, I put this up here 3 weeks ago. Is this like something that needs to be done soon? Or so if you go to the link I put in the chat and you go to projects, this tab here, then you go to group meetings review, which is the only board in there. And then we have our in progress and to do and done. So done is the stuff that we've already addressed. In progress are the things that we have sort of started on but maybe not finished. And then to do are things that we say, oh, maybe that's something we need to do in the future.
That's very understandable.
Yeah. And then, so let's see. What's most relevant? I don't know if, first of all, I don't know if Ankit has anything assigned. Probably not. But there are a bunch of issues that we have in progress. I think most of those are, Jesse's on some of them, but I think the one that Jesse has in here is number 31, Research Agent Mapping, Perception, and Representation of Environmental Space.
Yeah, I'm also on 39. You could put 39 in just the Trello board thing. That's probably done because that's made now.
Okay.
The research mapping agent's still going on. You could probably even put the number 37, actually put GitHub. That's in progress now too. I've been making some updates there slowly. But yeah, the only other thing I might put is for relevant to me specifically. I'm not sure if it will be next week, but it might be next week. But I wouldn't mind trying to present one of the papers just because I've never really did that and I wanted to do that. If that's still available.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. We'll present a paper. I don't know if I had you originally on like another thing, but we'll just make an issue here. Present a paper, convert to issue, and then what we'll do is we assign it here, and the assignees. Actually, this interface is a little weird. You have to go down like so you can get the drop down to come up, and we'll put you on there. And then this is just when we'll put that in progress even. So like what you would do then is like if you have something you want to present, you put it in the Slack channel, a link to the paper, or just upload the paper there, a copy of it, and then people can look at it before the presentation. And then you can send me a copy of the presentation a couple days before before next Saturday, to get some feedback on the slides, make sure that it looks good, and then we present and we'll talk about it. And again, it's like 15 to 20 minutes, so it's not a huge amount of like slides and and so that's was that.
So as far as I'm concerned, firstly I should decide what is the GUI that I would use. So if Stephen and G was present, so they would have given some feedback about what's the GUI that I can use. So that's still on hold. So
let me
know.
Oh, about the feedback next week, or?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
no, we can do all that in the same meeting. This is like a 15 to 20-minute thing, and then as well.
okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
we usually do multiple things in a meeting. I mean, it depends on what it is, but we can go, we can fit it all in. Let me put that as an issue. The,
Yeah.
uh,
Free feedback.
yeah. All right, and then yeah. And then we'll put that we'll leave that in to do for now. And then
Exactly.
we'll put those two on. There we go. And then that's your issue now, or well, our issue. And then next week we will go to the board, and they'll give the feedback, and we'll put it in done, or maybe in progress if they want to follow up more in like private conversation. So, and then
So,
I think the only thing, or Jesse also has deep dive into Evergood regulator theorems. I think he's doing that. That's in progress too.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. So, are there any other issues you can think of we need to put on the board for Ankit or for Jesse?
no, just like I'm about to start the thing, so before the prototype and things are done, but just to decide on the interface that I would use. So after that, I have a lot of issues as I presented in my PPT. So we'll talk about that later after the thing is. Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
can.
and one more thing, I felt is like the YouTube video that is being uploaded is like the audio clarity is fine, but the video's clarity is like if anyone is following that video, they can't see if the code or the thing that is being presented. So I'm really doubtful if they can get the point of the 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 window, the turtle window that I just showed.
Oh
So
yeah,
if they
the
can,
code. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can go over that again. Like if they, it just gives them the general idea. So if they want to get some pointers on the code, we can do the redo the demo next week, like just in person, so they can see it. It's just a limitation of I think the presentation software, the Meet. But I think if you're sitting there talking one on one, I think in Meet, I think we can communicate it a bit better. So, maybe you make sure that you bring your demo with you next week, and then we'll just go through it again, and they'll have more specific questions. So that's okay. I think that'll work. I think they can get the idea from what we have this week.
yeah. And
Okay.
I'll put the this presentation link and my proposal in the Slack channel, so that will be visible.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about before we go?
That's all for me. I'll be in touch
Yeah,
with stuff.
that's all for me too.
Okay. All right. Well,
So,
thank you guys. Thank you, Ankit, for presenting, and
Yeah, good to see you and welcome aboard.
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, you guys can contact me on Slack throughout the week if you have any questions. And hopefully Z and Stefan are able to join us next week. And so have a good week.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah.